London street art emerged in the 60s and 70s during the rebellious skate and punk scene. Street art was a way for the masses to express their different opinions on current issues or affairs. Today, it's a highly regarded multimedia movement and a business. Graffiti is everywhere. London is full of colour and people actually pay to have the art put on their buildings. So how did graffiti become a mainstream art form? And where did it come from?
Writing on walls has long been a way for the little man to get his views out into the open. In Roman times, people would write secret messages, political slogans, and poems anywhere there were public walls. Jumping into the 1930s in New York, gangs started graffitiing on the sides of public trains and walls as a way to marking their territory and earning respect. In 70s and 80s New York, graffiti became one of the 4 pillars of hip-hop, along with breakdancing, rapping and DJing. It was a positive alternative to the gang violence that plagued the city and offered a chance for young Black and Latino people to send messages to a political elite who they felt ignored them. Hip-hop's rising popularity inspired a generation of young Londoners to paint their names or whatever surface they could find. During the 80s and the 90s, areas such as Shoreditch and Hackney were used as canvases from artists who were considered vandals. The British government's response was a clampdown. The driving fear behind this has been the government's fear that it lacked control over the population. For smaller artists, remaining anonymous was and still is a must to protect themselves from the law. Even those who enjoy mainstream success sometimes choose to hide their identities in order to communicate anti-establishment and political messages.
Basically, I still like painting illegal walls. The piece that I painted of Boris Johnson a couple of weeks ago, that was without permission. And sometimes if there's a perfect wall there and you just want to take it, I can't post up pictures of myself online where I could be prosecuted.
The recognition of artists such as Banksy, Ben and Stick has helped to move street art away from the shadows and has led to the creation of spaces where anyone and everyone can showcase their skills with a spray can and have their work admired.
The Leek Street Tunnel, one of London's biggest legal street art areas. It was first used by Banksy in the 2000s and is tucked away underneath Waterloo Station. Once a hidden safe haven for artists to work without fear of legal trouble, now it's more known as a hotspot for tourists and influencers seeking to add colour and edge to their Instagram posts. The rise in social media has meant that even those who hide their faces can get their art seen by massive audiences. Platforms such as Instagram provide a much larger reach, so instead of fighting for space on walls, getting the most likes is a new way of gaining respect. Even though social media makes it possible to showcase work on a global level, it can put pressure on artists to put conforming to an aesthetic trend over using their art to comment on the world they see around them. This isn't the case for everyone, and having a permanent catalogue of work that typically has a short shelf life is always going to be an attractive prospect.
perfect because you can use social media as like a way to get your art out there. Sometimes some pieces will only last for like 5 days, something like that, before they can get covered up. Because you've got a photo and you put it online, it's there for eternity. So like it's like a catalogue of the work when it's gone, basically, and it just gets to a far bigger audience than you would otherwise.
With much bigger audiences comes the opportunity to work with big brands. The rise of acceptable graffiti through social media marketing and support by art galleries and brands seem to mark the end of street art as a subversive movement, but with big brands comes the potential to earn a living from their passion.
Street art's heading towards contemporary now. The same buyers are buying the same pieces. Like it is commercial now. Like people are earning a living off of it. Galleries are earning a living off the artists that are producing it. But like us artists, we could be doing a 9 to 5 and then doing this for the weekend. But we can do our passion if we just make it a little bit more commercial sometimes.
One of the galleries promoting and selling contemporary art is the PureEvil Gallery in Hoxton. It was founded by PureEvil, aka Charles Edwards, in 2007.
But I think there's definitely a division between graffiti and how that's seen and how street art is seen. You know, we're like the nice face of spraying on things, whereas they're seen as like, you know, criminals, and you could end up in, I think my friend ended up in prison for 18 months. And so it's become more popular. I think in the past, if you said to your father, hey, I want to become a street artist, he'd be like, oh no, he's going to be painting on trains, it's going to be awful. Whereas now it's like seen as more of a career path. People have said to me, oh, I'm studying street art in, you know, university and college. People are doing, you know, kind of legal documentaries about, you know, what the implications are of street art. Advertisers are using it to sell cars. Which you see sometimes that, you know, a lot of artists have become brands, and a lot of times when you see a piece go up on the side of a building, it's their logo or it's their thing. I kind of see myself as, and the gallery is kind of like an indie label, whereas, you know, you may release their first 7 inches, and then they'll probably go off and work with Sony and say, see you later, thanks a lot. But that's just the way it is. I'd rather be working on a kind of grassroots level than showing, you know, sort of the big hitters and, you know, trying to make money from it. I work on a basis where I take 25% commission from artists because I care about artists and I want to help them succeed. I want them to grow, so that's kind of my mission.
Though we have used them interchangeably, there are divisions between those who embrace being called street artists and traditional graffiti artists who aren't impressed by the use of stencils and stickers. They are often unhappy with street artists who they see as selling out and gentrifying the areas where their art is displayed. These graffiti artists have no time for political messages and see being paid by brands as a betrayal. Unless you have enough years of working illegally and paying your dues, they don't want to hear about brand collabs or exhibition spaces.
As time has gone by, a split has occurred. Some artists have gone on to gain international recognition, selling artworks for massive sums. However, there still exist harsh penalties for those whose names don't carry the same influence.
Of course, you can't talk about street art in London without talking about Banksy.
If you talk to like a taxi driver, and if you talk to, anyone, it's like he's become part of the popular culture,
Yeah.
He's like one of the most famous artists. And also it's interesting because now when they talk about his work, they talk about how much the last piece sold for.
It's the Banksy girl with balloon, ladies and gentlemen, standing in the back of the room, and I'm going to start getting here 100, 150, 200,000, I have already 200,000, 300,000, 350, 400,000,
He started off as a freehand graffiti artist in the early 90s in Bristol. By 2000, he developed a distinctive style of highly recognisable stencil images that often criticised the country's political system. In 2018, he shredded his artwork, a copy of his famous Girl with a Balloon, at Sotheby's when it was being auctioned for £1 million. This new artwork, Love in a Bin, is seen as a critical statement on buying a piece of art that wasn't meant to last forever in the first place, and was poking fun at the art establishment. Ironically, it's now worth double what it was. Street art has gained so much popularity that you can now take street art tours around London and participate in special workshops that teach you the basics of graffiti. There has also been a resurgence of young new graffiti writers who don't really care about tour stops, galleries, or to talk about their work. For them, street art has always been an art form for the masses. Their particular brand of graffiti might not be as eye-catching as the Instagram-worthy pieces in Shoreditch or the Leek Street Tunnel, but it remains true to the starting values of the art form.
If you're basically hoping that someone is going to come along to you and say, hey, we're the Tate Modern and we'd love to give you a retrospective, forget about it. The real kind of art establishment does not care about you unless you're selling your artwork for £1 million. So my advice to you is DIY, do it yourself. Get together with your friends, organize an exhibition, find a space, take control over your own career and what you're doing. We don't need another Banksy, we don't need another PureEvil, we need an original voice, and if there are things that are sort of annoying you about, the environment or about politics or about, or any issues, try and use your voice to talk about those things, because it's fine to say anything, but why not say something, and say something that really has power and has meaning.
Where the street art movement will go in the future remains to be seen, but for now, its grip on mainstream art culture is here to stay. That doesn't mean that everyone can be Banksy. Not everyone who gains commercial success uses their art to send a message. But at the end of the day, artists have to eat.